Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And in today's video we figured we'll show you what's in my bags. Just the way that I prep it before I go to church on a Sunday. I'm going to run you guys through everything I've got here so you can get some inspiration and basically get a gist of the things that you need to have to be ready and prepared to plug and play. Alright, so the first thing obviously is my PRS. This says it's an SE, but it's just an SE bag. This is actually a custom 22. You guys have seen this guitar on the channel a lot, so we'll get to that one in a bit. Alright, so the second bag here is just a pedal train board. And on here, I've basically got my Kemper Profiler remote. And to show you guys what's going on here, I'm actually just using one expression pedal. This is a Dunlop mini volume that I can assign to different things, but for the most part, this is just going into pedal input 6, which controls my volume. And then obviously over here, I can control my patches, switch on my effects and all those kind of things. So this is my Profiler remote. But let's get to the main thing, which is the Kemper, the brains behind this whole operation. All right, so here we got the Kemper. This is a powered head. I don't actually use a cab with the Kemper. I'm using in-ear monitors at church, which is in the bag. We'll get to that shortly. But this is really the brains of the operation. I control that with my floorboard. And before I go to church, obviously I've got all my patches set up, already loaded. And if I needed to tweak anything for specific songs, I can do that beforehand so that I can just plug in and play. So let's get it plugged in and then we'll look at all the other goodies in the bag. So on a Sunday, when I get there, I take my guitar out, goes on the stand, the floorboard goes where I'm going to stand most of the time underneath the MD mic. And then I go ahead and take out the Kemper. Put it on a chair right next to me in case I need to kind of get easy access. But from there, let's look at all the other bits and pieces in my bag. The whole reason that I've done this is in the past, I obviously use my gear in a studio, or I might have had another gig, and that basically means I'm using my gear. And then on a Thursday, I've got to get to church, and also on a Sunday, get there to play. And then if all your stuff is not prepped and in place, you could arrive at church and then, oh, I didn't bring my tuner because I forgot it on another guitar. Or I don't have the right cables because that was plugged into a different amp. Or whatever the case may be. So I've made this system in such a way that I don't even have to think about it anymore. I know exactly what needs to go in here. So everything is ready for me to go to church and play. So I think it's very important when you have your gear just to have all that stuff ready and in place. So let's start here with the cables. Basically, I've just got 3 cables for this particular setup. I've got my kettle cord to obviously power the Kemper. And you'll notice that this is a different kettle cord to the one that we use in studio because I don't want to have to unplug my kettle cord in the studio. So I've actually gotten an extra one that always just stays in the bag. This is the one thing that I've forgotten before at gigs, and it's not the kind of cable that just lies around and you can quickly get around it. So it's nice to have that extra cable right there. Then my second cable right here, this is a Mogami jack to jack. I've got a couple of these. That's the one that I'll use in the studio, but whenever I pack up, I roll it up and it goes into the bag so that I can plug my guitar straight into the Kemper. And then finally, I believe this is like a Cat 5 cable or like some kind of a network cable that comes with the Kemper to connect the floorboard to the Kemper. That's also another big thing because sometimes you can have your Kemper or whatever unit you're using at church, but then you don't have the cable to connect your controller to the Kemper in this instance. So making sure all those 3 cables are there when I leave, and then I know that's all taken care of. So opening up the bag, I've got a bunch of things as you can see. We'll take those out one by one. The very first thing is, I would guess, the obligatory Altoids plectrum box. I've got a ton of picks in here. So I know I'm never going to run out of picks when I play on a Sunday. So they're all there. And just to be safe, I've got a second box, also another kind of a mint box with different kind of picks. In case the acoustic player forgot theirs, I can help them out. But I want to make sure I have more than enough picks to play with because it's important to have your go-to picks that you are used to. So for me personally, I use these Altex Jazz 3 picks. All right, I've got a bunch of them in unopened bags still, so I know I'm never going to run out of these. This is a slightly different color one. This is a slightly different brand, but it's Dunlop USA, which is that Jazz 3 style pick. I've gotten used to these. When I pick up a normal pick, it just feels like I'm kind of holding a side plate in my hands because I've just gotten so used to this. And I think it's very important for you to be comfortable with your gear. It needs to be an extension of you so that everything just feels natural, because in that way you can go ahead and do what you need to do. If you're fighting with your gear or you're not feeling comfortable, that's never a good place to be in. Next up, we've got these Shure, I guess these are 215s, in-ear monitors, in-ear headphones. So this is what I use to plug in, and of course you need a little connector. We don't have wireless, so I've got a couple of these connectors in my box so that I can plug in and make sure I can hear everybody. These aren't particularly high end, but they totally do the job. They're quite cost effective for what they do. At some point I'll get properly in-ears molded for myself, but I only use these on a Sunday, so for now they totally do the trick. So that's the in-ear monitors. Then I've got a capo here, something I don't really use, but sometimes you need to have a capo to play a certain part, or maybe the acoustic guitarist forgot theirs and I can help them out. So that's just a nice thing to have as an extra backup. This is a string clipper, and I believe this is Planet Wave, so you can also have a string winder if you need to get your strings wound up pretty quickly. Of course, on a PRS you don't need that because you just pull the string tight, kind of give it almost one turn, and then your string is like almost at the perfect pitch there. But it's nice to have this if you need to clip strings, and to have it handy. So if you need to do a restring or whatever, you don't have these super long strings hanging out. And I normally find that when you have it, you don't need it. So talking about that, in one of these bags, I've got an extra pack of Elixir Strings as well. I try and change my strings fairly regularly so that you can kind of sense when they're getting a bit dull and then kind of prone to breaking. But it's nice to have an extra pack of strings with you. Again, Murphy's Law, if you've got it, you're probably not going to need it. So there's my extra pack of strings. In case I break one, I can quickly do a restring. The best option though is to have a second guitar, but like in my case, I've only got one PRS. The other guitars would be a Music Man or a Strat or something else that's not necessarily dialed into all my tones and stuff, but if you have an extra backup guitar, that's always good as well. It might not be exactly what you want, but it's going to be quicker to change your guitar than to change a string on the fly. Then of course, tuning is super important. So I've got one of these clip-on tuners. Even though the Kemper comes with an onboard tuner, I just prefer this. This is a Unitune, which is similar to the Polytune made by TC Electronic, and you clip this onto the headstock, and that allows me to just tune. I turn my guitar volume down, I can make sure my guitar is in tune, and even in between songs just double check the tuning, because there's nothing quite as bad as being out of tune. And as guitarists, we don't really have an excuse, because we can make sure our guitar is in tune, our intonation is checked, and all those kind of things. So the tuner is very important. And then finally, I've got some of these Energizer batteries. This is like a 2032 lithium batteries. This is what you need on the back of this tuner. So in case the battery goes down, I've got some extra ones that I can just go ahead and just grab from the bag and put them right into the tuner. And that in essence is everything. The final part here would be my iPad. So on the iPad is a couple of apps that I will use when we are playing live. I don't actually use this planning services or the services app from Planning Center, but that shows me when I'm scheduled to play, what the set list is, and all those kind of good things. It's right there. And then Music Stand, which is their version of charts. So for example, this Sunday, our first song is Who You Say I Am, and it's loaded right there on my iPad, and I can go ahead and cycle through my charts. Now, one thing, I'm not always too fond of the kind of like charts that they use, whether it's like the CCLI song charts. You know, they're fine for the most part, but they're not always as accurate. So I actually have a preference when it comes to charts to use the Chart Builder app from Multitracks. And with the Chart Builder app, I just find, you know, it's more accurate in terms of the kind of chords and the voicings and those kind of things. And then also, if you are MDing, it's got some MD notes. So if the band needs to come in softly, or the band pulls out, or there's a big build, those things are there. Then I don't actually have to make annotations on my other chart if I don't want to do that. So it's nice to have the annotations or available for the MD notes. You can also at a glance change the key. Instead of seeing the actual chords, you can go ahead and say you want to see the natural numbering system, or even if you're an acoustic player, if you're going to play a capo higher up on the neck, when you're playing it in C, even though the key is E, you can say capo at whatever fret, then it's going to show you the capoed chords, yet it's going to sound in the key that you are playing. So that's very important in terms of just having your charts available to you. And that basically means I can plug in, I've got my iPad in front of me on the stand, and then on my phone, I've got the MXQ app, which syncs up with our desk, and I've got my own monitor mix. So if I want more guitar, less bass, more bass, whatever I want to do, I can adjust that so that in my ears, I hear what I want to hear, and I can do that on the fly. I don't have to ask the sound guy or girl to do that for me every time. So that's a nice, handy way to kind of dial in your tone. So this is literally it. I don't think there's anything else in the other bag. The one thing that might be missing here would be some mints, but other than that, it's pretty much what I use on a Sunday. So I know if all these things are in my bag, I can just pick it up, I can go to church, and that allows you to be calm and relaxed because you know you've got your gear with you, you've got your tones, you've got all the stuff that you need in your monitors, you can do your mix, you've got your charts, you've got extra strings, your guitar's in tune, you've got batteries, you've got picks, you've got capos, you've got string winders. There's actually one other element that I don't have, which is a little multi-tool that I lent to a friend, just to kind of get that back at some point, because sometimes I need to tighten like a string or a cable lock on the PRS or whatever. So that's one thing I don't have here. But other than that, there's nothing else I need. I can just pick this up, and I know I can go and get the job done that you spend time preparing on during the week. All right, and then this right here is my trusty PRS. I don't do a lot of traveling with it. It just goes in my van. I go to church, I take it out. So normally I would like to have a more sturdy bag, which is something I'll invest in pretty soon. But for the moment, this is nice and handy because I can throw it in the back on my back. I can have the Kemper on one hand, the floorboard on the other, and then it's just easy to kind of get around. If the guitar's in the case, you carry the guitar in the hand and then you kind of lose an extra hand for anything else. So that's kind of useful. So let's have a look at the guitar. Right, so here we can see this is a workhorse. It needs to get some dusted and cleaned a little bit over here, but this is my guitar. Like I said beforehand, I make sure that I've got my strings are still in a good shape. If I need to change it, I'll go ahead and change it. And the strap, right now it's actually on the guitar, but I normally put the strap in the Kemper bag as well, so that that's one thing that you can also easily forget on a Sunday is arrive at church without your strap. And as an electric guitarist, you kind of need that when you're going to stand and play. So let's go ahead and plug it in and see what all of this does together. All right, so before I show you some of the sound examples here, if you want to learn how to compose parts, which is a very big deal playing worship, so you don't always have to kind of be in a parrot fashion or copying other parts, actually having the ability to compose your own parts, specifically for modern worship, check out the link in the description. We've got a training called The Ultimate Guide to Composing Modern Worship Guitar Parts. All the details on the page there, a bunch of great training and resources to help you see what you can do now that you've got the gear, you've got the tone, but you got to play and you got to compose parts. So if you're looking for something like that, check out the link in the description. All right, so here we go. Let me quickly run you through my 5 different tones that I've got here on my favorite patch. And by the way, there's also a video on our channel running through this exact patch. It's a very dirty sound. If I want to clean that up, I'll go to this one. For more of a verse thing. And over here, kind of an intro. And when I needed a nice big fat ambient tone. And there you have it. Some nice, interesting tones. I can pick up and play. I know what I'm going to expect. What I'm going to expect to hear is what's going to happen because I've got my tone ready. I've got all my stuff that I need to do the job that I've got to do. So there you go. I hope that was useful for you to kind of see what goes into my bag, the kind of tones, and then you can go ahead and take some learning from that and get yourself set up to really get into that plug and play mode. All right, guys, so there you have it. This is kind of my plug and play, pick it up and go type of setup. In the past, I used to play with a valve amp. I had a pedal board with, a bunch of Strymons and JHS pedals and a Boss switcher and all this stuff. But there was so much things to carry, and I just realized with the way that technology is going these days, whether you use a Kemper or a Helix or any of the other modelers, you have so much variety in that one box that you can take with you to church, and you don't have to kind of break your back to get to play through 4 songs. And I actually don't think you are sacrificing anything, because in the mix, you'll find it very difficult to find somebody that can actually tell you the difference between a real tube amp pedals versus what I'm using in this case as the Kemper. And of course, you've heard some of the sounds, and the versatility and the variety that you get is just really unmatched. So what I want to encourage you, it's not really about the type of guitar, the type of gear, whatever the case may be. It's just for you to be a good steward with what's been entrusted into your hands. So whatever you've got, make sure you use it to the best of your ability. There's a scripture says that when you're faithful with a little, God will be able to bless you with more. And I think that's really true. So make sure that you got your gear, it's working for you, and that when you get to church, you've prepared, you've done your skill work, you've got your tones dialed in, and you can be in the moment and really just serve whatever you got to do on a Sunday to help create those atmospheres that are conducive to people connecting with God and really experience that intimacy, His love and His touch. And that always blows my mind that we can get to do this on a Sunday, change lives, doing what we love, which is playing electric guitar and using that in our worship to the Lord. So hopefully this has been useful for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us in the comment section, and we hope you'll join us for one of our Worship Guitar Show episodes that we stream live typically on Thursdays. And check the link in the description. There's a bunch of things for you to stay in touch and additional resources for you to kind of dig into. All right, guys, have a good one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.